So, welcome, you guys. My name is Chloe Ballatori. I am a relationship and communication expert. I'm a graduate of Princeton University and Pat Allen's Want Institute. You may know Pat Allen. She's kind of a local celebrity. She also mentored Patty Stanger. Oh, good, she made it. And Marianne Williamson, among others. She's mostly in retirement, but she did mentor me at her school. And I use the tools that she taught me of androgynous semantic realignment, also known as ASR. I use tools from Eric Byrne's transactional analysis, also known as TA. And I use tools that I've come up with myself because I've been doing this work for over a decade now. I'm over 20 years married as well. So everything that I'm teaching you is not only backed by scientific and psychological principles, but I've also done myself. I've taught thousands of others, and I've also in my training witnessed at least hundreds of others go through these protocols and use these tools. So I am well versed in this work. I'm going to give a brief introduction of the theories behind this work. And for you guys who are new, don't worry if you don't understand everything. When I first heard this work, I certainly didn't understand it. But something resonated. And moreover, I had seen an incredible result in a friend of mine. And that's what really drew me in. I had kind of given up on therapy as a sort of, nice place to visit when you want to vent and have someone reflect to you your feelings and kind of nod and smile. But I didn't find that in emotive talk therapy, which is most of the therapy here in the US, that my life was actually changing. And so this work, when I saw the changes in my neighbor, I was like, oh, okay, that I want to do because I could see, a result. And so this work is very results oriented. Again, the scholarship that this work is based on is pretty well established, but the tools to execute on that scholarship are new. And so that's what I teach. I've also written 4 books on this work. They're all available on Amazon. Um, yeah, let me see if this will work. Put in my credentials there. My most recent book is Daddy Issues, Mommy Issues. I put a lot into that book, but they're all good. My first book is The Basics of This Work. So if you want to check that out, you can do so. Okay, so what am I talking about? What is this work? What is TA? What is ASR? When we talk about relationships and we talk about successful relationships specifically, we're talking about the balance of energy in the relationship. So, the most successful relationships are those that can balance in the complementary energy of feminine and masculine, also known as yin and yang. I don't want people to get too caught up in the terms feminine and masculine. Most of the time, 75 to 85% of the time, our energy falls along the gender we were born in, gender lines, but sometimes it doesn't. So I work with masculine women and I work with feminine men and I work with gay people, I work with couples, I work with teenagers. So it's all about that balance of energy. It applies to all relationships. Um Now, what is feminine and masculine or yin and yang? All of us are both, right? And we have the studies of Roger Sperry, who proved definitively in the 1980s that we all have a right brain, which is what we are defining as yin, which is the world of feelings, which is passive, patient, vulnerable. It's the world of magic and creativity, nonlinear thinking, spirituality, sexuality, sensuality. Yin energy is in the world to make it fun, but it's not of the world. And a good metaphor for yin energy are flowers. This is the energy of receiving. Then we have the left brain, which is more linear thinking. It's the world of thoughts, whereas the right brain is more the world of feelings. In the left brain, we're competing, conquering, controlling. When we're at work, most of us are in our masculine. Most of us are using our left brain predominantly, right? Because we're achieving, we're doing, we're trying to get ahead. It's giving, taking care of, nurturing. These are all left brain activities, and yang energy is very much of the world, right? Yang energy rules stuff. It's like bricks, yin energy rules air. Okay. One is not better than the other. Again, all of us are both. All of us have a unique balance of that within ourselves. And this balance can change over time. As women get older, we have hormone drop offs that make us a little more masculine, and men, same, have hormone drop offs that make us a little more feminine. So it's not something that is fixed, but something that is fluid. So if you think of the yin yang symbol, you'll remember that there's that slope in it, and that's what is meant to connote motion or fluidity. Okay, so oftentimes what happens when we have childhood trauma that throws off our balance, right? And that's because we have to sacrifice our authenticity as children to become attached to our parents. Human children are not very independent. And so we have to get along with the people who own the refrigerator. Now, in that service of doing that, so we can survive, we develop coping mechanisms that we think are based on existential truths, but are in fact strategies of the moment. Okay. And so this is when we get into trouble, and this is what it has to do with relationships is when we take these existential truths and these coping mechanisms, what we think are existential truths, and we bring them into our adult relationships, hoping to solve whatever the traumatic event that happened was in childhood. So the unconscious and the subconscious will seek that out over and over again. And you are doomed to repeat that which you don't understand. That's the repetition compulsion. And we, as humans, will keep repeating things until we become conscious of them because the psyche is trying to heal. So you will seek out partners that mirror the roles that the adults in your childhood. In my childhood, I'm really talking the age of 0 to 12, though there are some critical windows in teenage years. But for this conversation, I'm talking 0 to 12. So that's when we have the most intense critical developmental windows. And so the things that happen to us as children tend to affect us more than anything else in life. And that's Freud's work. Freud was right about that. You go through life 0 to 12, and then the rest of your life is kind of getting over that. Now, we know and we can be a lot more hopeful than Freud because we know that the brain can change and we can change these ideas. We are not doomed to repeat things because we are able to access consciousness and we are able to change our patterns. And that's where this work really comes in. These tools are meant to unearth your scripts, unearth your negative patterns so that you can end your self-sabotage and get the love you want. Um, and if you're in this room, and I know this was true for me when I found this work, I mean, it's probably true for most people that, I've witnessed negative patterns in my life for many years and I wanted to change them. And I didn't know what was making me so unhappy, but I was really unhappy. And this work helped me find my way back to my authentic self. And so when I saw what it could do and I saw the change that it infected in those around me, I wanted to do it and share it with others. Um, Now, just one word about doing this work and making changes. My second book is called New Ways of Being the Pain of Change because I think one of the least explored areas of psychology is the fact that we often have um, great expectations when we start making changes for the better, right? And then it becomes painful pretty soon. So even change for the better is painful, is a painful process. I think that's often confusing for people, and it makes you stop what you're doing because it's painful. So there's two kinds of pain: the pain that change needs to take place, and the pain that change is already taking place. And that pain can take some time to work its way through. And that when that's happening, that's what's called primaling, that kind of pain. And you might have different symptoms from that, but it's important to hang in there during that time. And I help people a lot with that because if you stop and start and stop and start, that just makes it more painful. So while these tools will not eliminate pain from your life, they will mitigate it. And so I find them very helpful for that reason. Okay, so now I'm going to open it up to your guys' questions. This is my favorite part. This is my free event. This is when I give back to my community. So you can ask me about relationships. You can ask me about dating. Dating and relationships is my specialty, but I also help people with communication problems and work problems and problems with families of origin. So it's easier to understand this work once we start using it in examples. And I know sometimes it can be hard to share um, mm, in a room of strangers, but sometimes it's easier. So you can raise your hand or you can put something in the chat and, you know, we'll get started. What about attachment issues? Okay. Hi, Brenda. If you want to talk, you can. If you Hi. Okay. Okay, so I assuming that you're talking about attachment theory. And that's a tool that psychologists often use to um help people navigate sometimes relationships, often the relationship that they have with their self. And I think it's pretty useful. Um, you know, oftentimes, again, attachment issues, problems with attachment. So there's three, for people who don't know, there's three ways that people attach. Okay. There's secure attachment, there is avoidant attachment, and there's anxious attachment. A lot of times an anxious attachment will get with an avoidant attachment because we fall in love with our lesson. We will always seek that out. Um, and so you have to look for that pattern. The goal, however, with attachment theory, and this is where I think people get a little bit derailed, is not to continue on with that form of attachment, but to work towards secure attachment. And the way we work towards secure attachment is by cherishing our feelings and respecting our thoughts. Okay. And the feminine energy is the cherishing of the feelings, and the masculine energy is respecting the thoughts. And so the more we are able to honor our own authentic thoughts and feelings, that builds confidence. And then we move either from anxious or avoidant to into secure attachment. But if you have a specific question, let me know. Did that answer your question? Okay. How do you trust? I hope that it did. Okay. Well, you can let me know. Okay, Heidi. Hi, Heidi. How do you trust and date again after a narcissist? Okay, good question. So, many of us have had bad experiences in relationships. In addition to having childhood trauma, many of us have had childhood trauma as well, whether it be with a small t or a big T. And those of us who have had, um, who have had bad experiences in relationships, um, that makes it really hard to be vulnerable, Glenn. I do understand that. But one of the things that I teach my clients is how to spot the signs pretty early. so that again, that vulnerability is mitigated. A narcissist, when I mean, a lot of psychological terms are thrown around, but narcissism is, when somebody basically only cares about themselves. Um, so especially for women, what you have to look for is one really important thing is, do they care about your feelings when you express them, right? If you tell someone you're cold, do they say, "Oh, here, let me give you my coat," or do they say, "Shh, it's hot. What are you talking about? You're crazy. You're being a baby." Okay? That's a very bad sign if somebody's discounting your feelings. That's one thing to really look for. Another thing to really look for is, do their deeds and their words line up? Even on small things. If they say they're going to call you at 5:30, do they call at 5:30? Or if they can't, do they at least say, "I'm not going to be able to call you at 5:30," for example, right? Um, do they mean what they say what they mean? Okay, so that's very important as well. Um, and then you also have to look at, I'd say, probably these are probably the top three most important things. Um, you only know how much you love yourself or anyone else by the commitments you're willing to make and keep. So, are they willing to make and keep commitments with you? That's probably, you know, another really big indication. I was watching it actually right before this. I was watching a TikTok of a psychologist or somebody saying, if they nobody's that busy, if they not prioritizing you, that means you're not a priority. And so, words are nice, but you really do have to look at actions. Does that make sense? Do you have any specific question about that?
Um, well, I think, yeah, I guess it just takes time. I mean, what's kind of happened with me is I I thought I was safe because I had a prenup and ended up being a total disaster and 5 years in court. He's tried to sue me 4 times. So it's like, how do you even get, like some real like major stuff that it's like how
Yeah.
do you even like like, it's not even an attachment issue, it's like, I don't even think, like, I didn't even wasn't even in love with the guy, it's like, and then this happened, so it's like, how do you even, like, become vulnerable and, like, trust someone again who ended up being, like, a total psychopath? It's like, how do you
Sure.
even trust again with anything?
I'm getting a
I'm
really
getting a
bad
really bad
echo.
echo.
Is there
Is there
can you turn
can
down something or turn off the speaker or something?
Mm, I don't have
Is that better? Yeah, that's better. Whatever you did, that's better. Okay. So you said you married someone, but you weren't in love with them?
Yeah, I guess I just thought it was a foundation for a good relationship because we, had a lot of, mutual acquaintances and we really got along. So I thought, well, it was my second marriage and it was 2.5 years since my first marriage ended and I was devastated. And I just thought, well, I've spent some time healing and I'll just take it kind of slow. And, I was overly cautious, but I think he just sensed some vulnerability and probably just I'm his third wife. He's done this 3 times and he
Mhm.
gets together with his lawyer parents and he steals properties and it's devastating. Most people walk away, but I just kept fighting, even though I have like no
Right.
money. But yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's hard. Um, and it's hard especially because a lot of times you'll look back and you'll go, "Oh, I saw some signs and I just ignored them," you know, like they were inconvenient. And so one of the things that we, especially as women, a lot of us have been trained and been told in so many ways by society, by our family, um, that, our feelings don't matter. And like I was saying, in the introduction, like we get discounted all the time. So one of the really important things for you going forward is be cherishing your own feelings, which first means to become aware of your feelings. Because women, we have like really powerful gut instincts. We'll feel something in our gut before we even know what it is. But if we feel something's off, then we can start to, find out what it is. And for example, um, for every rapist or serial killer, of course, there are women who got away, right? And those are the women who were used to cherishing their own feelings and not discounting themselves. So those are the women who, when they had a bad gut instinct and Ted Bundy was in the bathroom, they left, right? So part of your healing going forward is starting to become aware of your feelings and then to cherish those feelings, which means, well, it's something different for everyone, but basically means taking action on what those feelings are. So not just becoming aware, but then taking an action. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, I mean, I've definitely done a lot of, like, kind of assessing and gone through books and everything else, and, I was in protective housing for 3 years, and just I've kind of done a lot of work on it, but it's just like, how do you I don't know, like, I think I've struggled with, how do I
Yeah.
even let my guard down again? Like, how do I even
Well,
and
you
also
have
I don't
to.
wanna be that vulnerable person either, and, like, perceived to be the victim because then that's how I'm gonna get treated again, and
Well,
I don't
being
know.
a victim and being vulnerable are not the same things. We
Yeah,
hope our men are going to cherish our feelings, but if they don't, then we have to cherish them for ourselves. And if it gets past a certain point, then we have to leave our men, right? Because what's the point of being in the relationship if you're not getting something out of it? So, in general, you need three things for a successful relationship. You need chemistry, which it doesn't sound like you had.
no,
And that's usually a gift from God, right? Sometimes you have chemistry for somebody who's not even good for you, um, or that you've never even spoken to, right? Chemistry is the least negotiable item. We
yeah,
need compatibility, and that sounds like something that you did have. You wanted the same things. You had similar friends, you had similar interests, right? Does one person want to be in the feminine energy? Does one person want to be in the masculine energy? Most people don't understand that when they're going into a relationship, but that's something that when I work with people, I help them understand and look for. Because if two people want to be in the masculine energy, we have a power struggle for control. If two people want to be in the feminine energy, we have a power struggle for feelings and for sympathy. Now, with a narcissist, they want to take the feminine energy and the masculine energy. And so they don't leave you any room. So that means they're a 10 and you're a 0. And so that dynamic is one that you're going to have to look out for. If somebody isn't cherishing your feelings or respecting your thoughts, that's a red flag for you. And then the third is communication, which that's what we can really work on the most. And that's a lot of the tools that I teach are the tools of communication to see if there's a problem, because there's always problems in relationships, even the best relationships, how we can flush that communication and understand each other from a position of negotiating with love. Um, so, for example, if you were working with me and you came to me with a conflict that you had with somebody, we would determine how to address that, probably using the stroke and stand, which is a tool that I teach. How to negotiate the things that you want and don't want with love. Now, women often find out what they want by what they don't want. So it sounds like you've had a couple really bad experiences and a good opportunity to find out what you don't want. So that's in your favor. Um, and then moving forward, I mean, now you have this resource here. You've learned some things, you've said before, and this work will really, really help you. Um, it's a matter of incrementally desensitizing, kind of maybe going a little slowly, taking your time. Certainly, if you want to be in the feminine energy, doing things that will help you um, in a sensual way. For example, I'm going to give you a little homework. Are you doing, and if you're not, I want you to do 1 hour of activity every day that is something just to make you feel good, that has no end other than that. not something productive, okay? But just something to make you feel good, like if it's take could be taking a nap, it could be getting a massage, it could be meditating. Um,
Hallmark movies.
huh? Can you do that? Does
Hallmark, Hallmark movies. That's what I do.
Yeah, you can look at your home birth movies. Yeah, exactly.
No, no, no,
Or
Hallmark movies.
oh, Hallmark movies, Hallmark movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, watching things is good, but not all the time because it's a little passive,
Mm.
and but it's nice to get lost in the movie, and especially like a Hallmark movie that'll probably be moving and, like cause some emotion. But yeah, mix it up a little and see what works for you. And just make sure that you're doing that every day. And if you want to stay in your feminine energy, that really is about putting your feelings first. So that means that women need to feel good to do good. Okay. Men need to do good to feel good. So that's that complementary energy. It's not equal. We're looking at equity more than we're looking at strict equality. So there's that complement there. Complement with an E. Um, so the
I do
more
journal, right? I do like go like just kind of go for like a 5 minute run, and I do yoga in the morning. So I do have my routine of self-care, but
Okay. Okay.
I don't
Well, yeah, sometimes, I mean, it just depends. For some people, working out is a self-care, and could be considered yin, but for some people, they hate working out and they're just doing it. So it just depends on what
okay.
it is for you. But if you're enjoying it, yeah, absolutely, that can count. Um, so in general, bringing more attention to your feelings, becoming aware of them, and then trusting that gut instinct enough to act on it. And feelings are usually one word. I often work with women who will be like, "I feel like he's a jerk," and that's not a feeling, that's a thought. So if you're saying I feel like, you're really entering into a thought. And that's like when we have that causes a lot of confusion. I see that a lot on in reality and in with people, this is my truth, but their truth is really a judgment. Your truth is your feeling as a woman. So it's like, I feel sad, I feel happy, I feel insecure. Those are feelings. I feel like you're a jerk's not a feeling, that's a thought and it's a judgment. So be aware of making sure that when you're trying to bring consciousness to your feelings, that you're bringing consciousness to actual feelings instead of thoughts. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just deciphering. Yeah, I think it's gonna take a while to access the feelings and know what instead of being in the head.
Yeah, and that's normal, and that's right. I mean, that's one of the hardest things because it's like when we've been hurt in childhood or we've been hurt in relationships, the last thing we want to do is become vulnerable again, right? That's a nightmare. Um, but that's what we have to do in order to heal. That's the kind of paradox.
Practice makes perfect, basically.
Yeah. So, yeah. And it takes time. All good, like spiritual and psychological work does take time. But try those things, come back, let me know how it goes, and we'll see what's next for you. Now you have this little support group, this community, and we'll help you on your way.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And you guys can ask questions also about other things that other people said. I know, Raul, you had a question. What's up?
Hey, Chloe, this is Anna.
Oh, hey, Anna. You look
We're on the
different.
drive home, so sorry. No, it's okay.
Okay. How can I
I just
help
wanted to
you?
give you a little update.
Okay.
Just wanted to give you a little update. When we talked to you on, I believe it was on over the weekend, we still didn't make up that same day, but the next morning I woke up and I had been thinking and thinking that I had really fought for this man so hard. I had taken on my kids and my family, when we first got together. They weren't,
Right.
they didn't want us to get together, and I said, no, this can't end like this. I fought too hard for him.
Mhm.
So I, asked him if he wanted to talk, and we talked, and he said that he was going to try harder, and I told him that I was going to try harder, and just saying that to me was enough, and I did
Mm.
let him know later that I was going to try harder and not shaming him and not judging him.
I love that. I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you for that update.
Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to share.
Okay, good. That's good. So, yeah, um, just so you guys know, if you do after this meetup or at any time want to set up a private session, you can do that. You can reach out to me through my website. Here, I'll put everything in here again. You can reach out to me through Instagram. You can reach out to me through Meetup, and then we'll set something up. And, like Anna said, we talked on the weekend. So I really try to help people in the moment when they need it so that the problem doesn't get worse. That was another beef I had with traditional therapy was like, well, if my problem is on Friday and I'm not seeing you till Tuesday, by Tuesday I'm going to be down the drain with like a million other problems. So it's just more efficient financially, energy wise, in almost every way to reach out and nip it in the bud when that happens. So kudos for you guys to reaching out to me. And I'm so glad that um, you know, that it ended up the way that it did. I'm always biased towards keeping people together and if possible. And yeah, I know that you guys have a lot of um love for each other and feel strongly about one another. And so I don't want your triggers to get in the way. And I'm happy that you guys have taken this opportunity for growth. Yay! Okay. Okay, Brenda, childhood trauma affects a lot. Yes. So, sometimes when we're children, our parents were raised by people who do mean us harm. Sometimes we are raised by people who are trying their best but still harm us. There usually ends up being some level of trauma in childhood. Um, but yeah, it does affect so much. And you're not the first person to notice that. It's Freud, but it's also, I mean, Patsy Highsmith, the author, she also said the only reality is childhood. Okay. Nicole.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, it's so good to hear your voice.
Me too. It's been so long. I've just been listening and regaining a lot of the knowledge that obviously I learned from you many, many years ago, and trying to configure a simple version of a question. Mine is more geared towards a breakup right now.
Okay.
Um, so I, learned a lot about you from you regarding like the feminine, masculine, and thoughts versus emotions. And especially in the last 4 years, I've done so much internal work. And also, mind you, I'm now living in Mexico City. So dating men down here is very different because we have
Mhm.
cultural differences and we also have language barrier issues.
Are you fluent in Spanish?
I am not fluent in Spanish. I'm intermediate level Spanish.
Okay. Okay.
Um, the last person that I was just dating, his English was quite good, so most of our relationship was through English,
Okay, good.
which I know is hard for him and did cause, it's difficult because if it's not your primary language, it's hard to express yourself completely.
Mhm.
So obviously had a lot of compassion and patience for him when we were talking through things. It was a short-lived thing. We were friends for 1 month and then we dated for 1 month, but it was I have a very intense heart and I fall quickly and deeply, and he also did. Um,
So what
and
happened? Why did you guys break up?
I mean, long story, but the shorter version of it was that like the first 3 weeks were really amazing. I'm very, very proud of myself because it was. I'm going to start with this because I think it's good to start with a positive. This is the most adult and mature I've ever been in a relationship, and found like my communication skills are definitely improving, because as we all know, like relationships trigger things that other types of friendships and relationships don't trigger.
Yes, exact.
And
That's where your problems show up first. And
yeah,
that's
so
what
I went into this knowing that there was gonna need to be a lot of work, on probably both of our parts, but I knew, like, the only thing I can control is my part,
right.
and I went into it knowing that triggers are gonna come up, and I don't know what they're gonna be yet, but I'm gonna be open to communicating, how I feel and what I'm going through and, not too fast, too soon kinda thing, obviously, but went into this very openly, very open-heartedly, very authentically. Um, I've had to grow up being in a very masculine energy because I am an only child and obviously moving to a new country on my own, etc. Like having
You've
to
had
kind
to
of
do
live,
it. Yeah.
yeah, like out of survival, I've had to live in a very masculine energy. And with him for the first 3 weeks of actually dating, I was I've always, always, always dated guys that I've been in the anxious avoidant cycle. And, with him for the first 3 weeks, I've never felt safe attachment before, secure attachment before, and I did with him.
Nice. Yeah, I would
Um,
imagine the men down there are probably more traditional.
they are, but they're also really dramatic.
Okay. Right.
So, where things
Passionate.
like
Right. Yeah.
So where things started to kind of run apart, and this goes into your work as well, is, I want to be in my feminine. I want to let go of that masculine. I don't want to have to be in protective mode of myself all the time.
Hmm.
And I want to be in my feelings. Um, and that's something that, I've worked on really hard. And I've had a lot of people tell me through my life, especially recently, though, like, I've never met somebody that's as self-aware as you are, that knows what you want, that, is so driven in forward with who you are.
Hmm.
Which I think says a lot about, the work that I've done on myself in the last handful of years.
Totally. Okay. So what
And
happened in the week? What happened in the last week?
so it turned out that apparently this man is avoidant as hell. I just hit it really well for the first 3 weeks, and, yeah,
And through the friendship.
and through the friendship, I mean, the friendship went slowly and,
Right.
that part was good, and, we weren't had any expectations of each other at that time, and then when we started dating, it was going really well, and we were having a lot of fun and a lot of jokes, and, um, he apparently, like, his family, like, they call him a Grinch, like, because he's, like, so serious and doesn't really joke and doesn't laugh, and when I met his family, I was like, "That's really interesting. I don't actually know who you're talking about because the man that I'm dating is so different." Which is interesting and maybe a sign of, like, he was putting on a show maybe
Well,
in the
it's a
beginning?
sign. Well, there's a few things. I mean, first of all, the first 3 months is always the perfect period, right? So
Uh-huh,
you were still in that perfect period, and you just have to look at that a little bit with a little bit of circumspection because that's when you have the rose-colored glasses on. Neither
yeah,
one of you can do no wrong. You're like poster children of happy relationships. Um, but certainly the fact that he was a different person around you and his family suggests that he might be practiced at adopting personas,
uh-huh.
which might be a not, which is just a sign of somebody who might be afraid to live authentically.
Yeah, it's I agree with you on that because one of the things that he would say to me in the beginning is he would say, "I've I can't believe how safe and secure I feel around you." Which to me translated to normally you don't feel safe and secure around people.
Right, right, right. That it was
So
change for him.
right, which I really enjoyed,
Of course,
when
that's
he
a huge
felt safe.
compliment.
So, I mean, I hope that that's a gift to him,
Did
that
he
he
just
knows.
drop off at the end or disappear?
Yeah, So basically, we went on a short vacation together. That was an invitation from him, and it wasn't very far from here, just a drive out of the city. And we were together for 3 days, and everything went well. We had just like normal, like just two different people like getting to know each other, kind of communications. I don't want to even call them conflicts because to me they
Right.
weren't even
Road trip
conflicts.
stuff. Right.
Yeah, yeah, just like, just two humans getting to know each other. We're just gonna have differences of opinions and things.
Of
And
course.
so, but the problem that would come in, and this was kind of consistent from the beginning, and this goes in alignment with your work, was that anytime I expressed feelings based on something that he may have done wrong, such as like cancel a date last minute or not show up for something or say something in a tone or,
Right.
etc. And and I was very careful with my language. I feel that, I feel this when you did this kind of
Mhm.
thing. And I was very cautious with my nonviolent communication. And
Did you make an appointment when you came in for your criticism?
I mean, they kind of happened like at the moment usually.
Okay.
Um, and so his reactions to those, so that was kind of continuous through it because it didn't happen very often. Of course, we weren't together very long. But what happened within those was it turned into like, you're overreacting. Wow, I can't believe that like you're being this dramatic about this, da da da
Right.
da
So he
da, which
discounted you.
completely discounted.
Right.
And then he would reverse it and then turn himself into the victim somehow,
Mm.
always.
Right. Right. That's
And
really
was
bad communication. That's like a losing
correct. Very
communication.
bad communication and like, in my opinion, like zero conflict management skills.
Yeah.
Like close to zero, honestly.
Right.
So anyway, to like fast forward, so we went on this vacation, everything went well. We come back from the vacation, we separate for like a couple of days, and then we see each other. Everything seems cool. Like, I go to like he has a store, so I go over to his store and I'm like hanging out with him while he's working and making sure like, I verified like I'm not bothering you while I'm being here. No, 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 it's fine. Um, and he like bought me a gift, was super excited to see me, like gave me a big hug and a kiss, like in front of his workers. Like they all knew we were
Nice.
dating, his family knew we were dating, everything was
That's
clear.
good. Right.
um, and then that same day when I was like sitting at his store with him, I asked if he wanted me to stay the night. He was like, not tonight. He's like, I've got a lot of laundry to do and this and that, whatever. I had a friend coming into town, a male friend who was gay, and he knew that, who was staying with me. And I said, well, this is the last night that we're going to be able to stay together if you'd like. So I'm just offering if, yes is okay and no is okay. And he said, not tonight. I've got a lot of things to do. And I said, okay. So he said, I'll walk you home though. And we only live a block away from the store. So he walked me home. And at that point, like, cause nothing weird had happened
Uh-huh.
up to that point. And then all of a sudden, like he went from like always like down in Mexico, like the culture here is very touchy-feely, like holding hands all the time, like PDA is like super normal. Which I love because I lacked that in my childhood.
Mhm.
And so he goes to walk me home. He doesn't hold my hand. He doesn't talk to me the entire time we walk home. And then we get to my door. He literally pecks me and is like, see you later, and goes to leave,
Okay.
which was like completely off character. And I was like, hold on a second, like energy is off here. Cause like I'm very sensitive to energies.
Mhm.
And he just kind of got defensive, wouldn't open up about like, I'm sure it had nothing to do with me at that time, but he got defensive and he was like, no, your energy's off. And I was like, okay, like interesting. So we kind of got into this little like quarrel a little bit that had kind of no ending,
Right, because it was
entirely just
about
like,
something totally nebulous.
right, and he wouldn't communicate because 'cause I'm sure it was like, "Hey, I'm
Right.
worried, like, I've got
Okay.
money issues, like, the store," that I'm quite sure that
Okay,
that's
so
what it
one thing
was.
I'm just saying one thing you could have said So that
piece.
he didn't that just would have made it a little bit more neutral. I'm not saying you did something
Uh-huh.
wrong. I'm just saying you could say, "Hey, I noticed you're acting different. Is something wrong?"
Sure.
To give him the chance instead of just saying, "Hey, your energy's off." I'm not
Right.
saying you were a bitch about it, and most things are overdetermined, so perhaps probably you would have reached this point anyway. I'm just giving
Exactly.
you a little tweak.
Yep.
Um, okay, so go on.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I've actually kind of thought through that as well, just, through just kind of learning, just thinking back through things. I'm not
Right.
ruminating too much, but just kind
Good.
of thinking back and I was like, I probably could have like eased that a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, so of course then he got defensive. And then we kind of just said like, hey, let's just go like sleep it off and then we'll go to breakfast he invited me to go to breakfast in the morning. And to me, breakfast was a moment of mending, right? Like it was
Right.
a repair. It wasn't about the breakfast, it was about the time together to repair. And he basically no called, no showed for breakfast.
Okay.
Okay. So I call him and I call him at 12 o'clock. It's now
Was he
noon.
supposed to come
And
over at a certain time? Had that plan been made, or how
I
did you do
asked
it?
I asked him for time and he said, I will text you in the morning to tell
Okay, so he
you.
never texted.
Yeah, nothing.
Okay.
No text, no calls,
So
just
by
nothing.
12 you texted
Um,
him. You called.
By 12, I called him. Yep, and he was sleeping.
Okay.
Um, and of course, like, I felt offended by that, just in the sake that, like, you had invited me to breakfast and, like, this wasn't obviously a priority to you. I mean, I know, again, like, tough situation,
Yeah.
whatever, in that sense, like,
It
and I
was
was just kind of
right.
like
It was something that right. You just couldn't give him the benefit of the doubt of it about it because of what had happened the night before.
correct. So I just kind of expressed, "Hey, I'm upset because last night, we kind of had this little issue, and then having the breakfast was important to me because this was our moment to repair things."
Right.
So I had a lot of other things going on. I was at the store. This is part of what the problem that had happened was I was at the store, had a lot of other things going on in my life, and this action that he made, I started crying.
That's
He hung up
okay.
on me
You
and
don't have to make any excuses for crying. Crying's
no,
fine.
no, no, and I'm not. So, like,
Okay.
but here was where the problem came in. So we're trying to talk on the phone and he's like super mumbly. He hangs up on me because he says he can't understand.
Because you're
And
crying.
well, no, I hadn't started crying yet.
Oh.
So he hangs up, he sends me like a text and he's like, listen, I was just tired. And I'm like, well, I just needed you to communicate that with me. Like, if you're tired, just tell me, like, there's no way that you didn't wake up sometime between 6 and 12 and think like, man, I'm really tired. I should probably tell Nicole that let's like reschedule for 3.
Okay, but that's a little micromanaging. Just, you
Mm,
know, I look, you got to be careful about telling him what to do. You can express your feelings, but it's up to him to decide what he's going to do about it. If you
sure.
want to tell him what to do, then you got to say, I have an idea about what would have made me feel better. Do you want to hear it?
So I actually didn't say this to him though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, no, no. I was just saying like it would have like this could
You
have
were
happened.
just thinking that.
Correct, exactly. So
Okay.
I
Okay.
didn't tell him this.
Okay.
But so then he started sending me messages and he's basically just telling me I'm being dramatic about the fact that he missed breakfast. He's taking no accountability for it. And that's when I started crying,
Right. Okay.
of course. So because I had expressed my
No,
emotion.
because that's the triggering thing. And that's the thing that you said had kind of come up a few times already, even during the perfect 3 weeks, where
Exactly.
there were just some times where you felt bad and he tried to talk you out of feeling bad. And that's
Exactly.
the trigger. That's what hits us so hard because that's the gaslighting and the discounting, and that's what
Correct.
hits the childhood trauma. So that's why
Yeah.
you cried. I mean, that's totally normal
I
reacting
agree with
to
you,
that.
and I have 0, like, regret in any of that, like, I felt how I felt, I was
Right.
overwhelmed, I was sad, obviously, I was disappointed, etcetera, So, I cried. His workers invited me in. They gave me water, they gave me tissue. I slightly made a mistake by, like, expressing, like, a little
Oh,
bit
I
about
thought this was happening
emotion.
over the phone. This was
It
happening at his
was,
work?
but it was at his so I'd gone to his store to
Oh,
see if he was at his store.
when?
This was like the
After
so
the phone call?
the phone call happened while I was at his store
Oh, so first you went to the store
to
and
see if
then
he was
you
there.
called him from the store.
Yeah, I went to the store to
Okay,
see
so
if
you
he was
tried to see
there.
him in person. Okay, got it.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yes, 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 'cause I was gonna be like,
Okay,
"Hey,
so
if I
you were
can stop
already
by."
at the store, so they were like, "Oh," and okay. So that was messy.
And I've known these exactly, and I've known these girls for 2 months now, so, like, trusted them enough, and they were offering support, so I was just like, "Man, like, so weird, like, everything was cool, and then, like, yesterday, like, he was really distant, and then today he, like, blew me off for breakfast, and I'm just really upset." I calmed myself down, I went home, and then he texted me and was like, "You surpassed a crazy boundary of, like, talking to my employees
Mhm.
about our personal life."
Right. I can understand that,
And
can't you?
which I of course,
Yeah.
yeah, like, so, um, he was like, "I need space and time, like, you've, like, offended me basically at this point,
It was
and I don't know,
disrespectful.
like."
Yeah.
So, and I said, "Okay, I will give you time and space." And I did. And then, like, he said he needed a couple of days. By like day 4, I still had not heard from him. And I also was like, you know what? I really didn't hold myself accountable for this. So I did send a text and I said, "Listen, I understand you need space right now, but I just also realized that I need to apologize for overstepping this boundary to you."
Mhm.
And,
Good.
it was an uncommunicated boundary, but it was a boundary nonetheless. And I can totally understand and feel why it hurt you. And I understand like your need for privacy more in our relationship moving forward. And I will definitely like take that into account in the future. And I hope that you're ready at some point, like very soon, so we can meet and talk about this and figure this out. And then he tells me he needs another week.
Okay.
So at that point, then I had to make some decisions.
You couldn't do another week.
Um, so this began to start to trigger into the anxious
Anxious.
avoidant for
Right,
me.
right, of course.
And so I did give him more time though. And and then by yeah, so it had been like a little over a week at this point, and I kind of like just kind of said, I don't really want to be with someone that doesn't want to communicate with me within, a day to 2 days. Like that's to me processing time. I mean, everybody's got their own stuff, but
Yeah, I
like,
mean, typically, I say he's got 8 weeks because that's the rumination period.
yeah, I can't do that.
Okay.
That's not that's not for me.
So you wanted to
I
end it,
no, well, I mean, I wanted to talk about it.
but
So because
you didn't want it enough to wait.
no, 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 no,
Okay.
because I don't want to be with someone who needs 8 weeks to consider
Okay.
something.
Okay.
No,
Okay, that's fair. Okay, so
that's
you cut
not for
it
me.
off.
I'm sorry?
So you cut it off.
Well, I kinda ended up, like, weirdly kind of I mean, he had some stuff at his house of mine, so I texted him and I said, "Hey, I need these things back, take them to your store and I'll pick them up." And, I went to the store to pick them up, and he was, like, literally hiding in a back room to not see me.
Right.
Um, and then he came out of the back room, saw me, and literally ran back in the back room.
Right.
And I mean, physically was like avoiding confrontation with me.
Right. Okay.
And
Was that
so, say it again?
and that was that?
No, no, no. It ended up being like I kind of like left for a second to just kind of see if like he had actually physically left and came back, and then he thought I left, but I was just looking to see if his car was still there,
Right, so you tricked
and
him.
he was out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I came back and he was like, "Oh fuck."
Right.
Um, So we did have a talk. I wasn't my intention to have to talk at his store. I didn't want that, but there was no other option. So we kind of
Okay.
said our pieces, and he was pretty nasty about a lot of things that he said.
Right.
And
Right.
so, I mean, this is so just to give you like a really big context. He told me that when I was upset about him missing breakfast, which, as I mentioned, wasn't about missing breakfast.
Right.
It was about repairing.
Mhm.
Um, he said that I should have, quote unquote, shut up, gone back to my house and cried by myself.
That's sensitive.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. I don't want to demonize him, and we're just about out of time because I
Yeah,
usually
no
do
problem.
an hour. And I have the whole story. Um, there's a few things here. Um, first of all, resolution comes from inside you, so you really didn't need to reach out to him to tell him
Mhm,
anything or even to get your shit back.
mhm,
That all could have not happened, and that whole conversation would never have happened. Once you see who the person is, then the power position is doing what you can to cherish your feelings. And I
mhm,
know you wanted your stuff back, but more important than that, I want you to cherish your feelings that you're not chasing somebody, because
mhm,
that's when that's when he got avoidant and you got more into anxious and you recreated your cycle. And that's part of the reason why you feel so bad now, because you kind of deserted yourself in your own, you gave up your power to him. You gave up your power to have a conversation with him, to get your stuff back from him, and you gave him another opportunity to hurt you in that moment. You knew if you had a conversation with him, it wasn't going to go well. He doesn't want to talk to you.
mhm,
So that's my main thing in hearing this story is that there were moments for you to cherish your own feelings, which you kind of abandoned yourself and put yourself into like an unpleasant situation that didn't necessarily need to happen.
mhm,
Um, Once he was like, I don't want to talk to you, then we don't, if someone says they don't want to talk to us, we don't try to then pursue them to talk to them. You understand?
mhm, mhm,
That's a
mhm,
habit from childhood.
mhm,
If someone doesn't want to talk to you, by definition, you don't want to talk to them. You know, that for a secure attached person, oh, okay, bye. I'm out. Right.
mhm,
So that's when you fell back into your pattern and you went after him.
mhm,
The other thing is when he slept in, I understand you were upset that he didn't show up and all that. I would have preferred if you had not called him after that.
mhm, mhm,
And you see how certain little things like really accelerated the downfall of this relationship, and maybe it
mhm,
would have fallen down anyways. Most likely it would have, because like I
mhm,
said, most things are overdetermined.
mhm,
But um there's just these things, it's just an opportunity for you to work on some of these things so that next time you don't lose so much of yourself in the transaction. Do you understand what I'm saying? Does that make
yeah,
sense? Okay. So, for example, like I said, something when you said something's off, it's like, are you upset about something? So there's that. So he was sort of at that point you knew, but when he walked you home at that whole in that moment, whatever had happened, whether it was you asking to spend the night or whatever it was, he was starting to move into a negative space and he was probably triggered by something, either
mhm,
something you said or something else, whatever it was. So you're in
mhm,
like a dangerous water then, right?
mhm,
That's when you have to really respect the other person's autonomy. He doesn't want to talk about it. Let's not talk about it, because probably talking about it is going to make things worse. You know
mhm,
what I'm saying? So there was that moment. Then I would say then the next day I would not have called him. I would have waited for him to reach out. And
mm,
look, you could still fucking dump him, of course, but let him reach out. So it's not like you chasing him so that he can then tell you a bunch of mean things. That's bad
mm,
for your confidence. That's bad
mhm,
for your self-esteem.
mhm,
And so a lot, and I look, I'm talking as somebody who's been there and done it too, So it's like, I was trained also to, if a whole group of people in the room liked me, but one person didn't like me, I had to convert that person.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I was raised. That's the way I
Right.
was trained. So a lot of people have similar training. And so I'm seeing a little bit of that in you too. You
Mhm.
know, the red flag is he doesn't want to talk to you. He wants space. Give him his fucking space. Go away. Take care of yourself. Do your thing. Be Nicole, whatever that means. Go flirt with some other guys. I'm not saying cheat on him if you have a committed relationship, but do things to make yourself feel good. Stop going to that well when it's shut off.
Mhm.
And then we could have seen if given a certain amount of time, maybe he would have still been a jerk, right? But then at least it wouldn't have been so rough on you. That's all,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah, yeah, I think, like, the biggest thing, and sorry to take, like, extra time, but, like, I mean, I guess right now, like, my big thing is, like, it ended so aggressively, and,
Yeah.
I mean, it was so abrupt, and it was so aggressive, and that's what's shaking me the most, like, I've gone through, like, 4 of the 5 grief processes already in, like, 2 weeks, so,
Right.
like, it's
It was a
going
big trigger.
fast.
You guys triggered each other and you went into your things, and it was less about him, but more about whatever it triggered in you.
Of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, he was triggered by something too, which I did
Yes.
something that triggered something within him that didn't have to do with me, and I understand that. And I mean, but it was so abrupt and it ended so aggressively.
It went so fast. Yeah, it's so easy for something to be destroyed. And
Yeah, well, like, and I just don't understand the aggression because, like, I don't feel any resentment. I don't feel like there's any reason that it needed to just be like, okay, cool, like we're not compatible, like see you later.
well,
But I
it's
mean,
because
like,
you guys were triggered. That's why. He was in a different state. When that
yeah,
happens, it's like the ghosts of your ancestors are fighting it out. It's not even you
mhm,
anymore. It's totally
mhm,
impersonal. You guys only knew each other for 2 months.
right,
He said a bunch of stuff he has no right to say,
sure, yeah, yeah, yeah,
So he was in his script, you were in your script. It wasn't an authentic communication. So
mhm,
as much as you can just take all that crap that he said and just dump it,
yeah,
do. You know, you told me what happened. If you want, we can work on it more next week or privately or whatever. But you told me what happened, and I've already now gone through for you where I think you fell down on yourself.
mhm.
So now you don't have to break it down anymore. Now you know.
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm going through it okay, and I really don't think I was at fault for a lot of these things. I understand, like, I mean, he's got a lot of work to do. I mean, we all do, but, like, he's got a lot of work to do for a 41-year-old still. And,
Oh, wow,
yeah, I think
41. Yeah, I was assuming younger. Okay.
no, he's 41.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
he's got some work to do.
so, but yeah, I mean,
I
I'm
mean,
really
we
trying
all do.
to
Like you said, we're all
yeah.
almost all of us are fixers. The only thing I would have maybe wanted to see if he were teachable, because it really does come down to teachable or unteachable.
Sure.
He
Yeah,
may
yeah.
not have, so far, he's not sounding teachable.
Yeah, I mean, there
So,
were like, with more of the story another time maybe or whatever. I mean, there were red flags that came up with little bits of manipulation and gaslighting, you heard some of those, like,
right,
and, like, there was some microaggression that was starting to come up.
right.
And, like, and I don't wanna label anybody as a narcissist, but there were definitely some traits that were coming through because I'm a professional narcissist dater. Um
We've got a theme tonight.
Yes, so there were just I don't wanna label him as a narcissist, but there were some traits, and I was just
Okay.
kind of, like, keeping an eye on them because 'cause I'm like, are they cultural differences? Are they
Right.
language
That's tough. No,
are they language
you're in a
barriers?
challenging situation for sure.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think long story short, he just isn't my person and we're not compatible, but yeah, it's just like yeah, I think my big thing right now is, like, as I'm, like, going through the grieving process, like, I just keep kinda going back to, like, the disbelief part, just about how aggressive, like, he was with the ending,
Right.
and that's the part that I'm having a lot of trouble with.
Well, like I said, don't take it personally.
Yeah.
And that's just a lesson to you. Don't hunt them down next time.
No.
Don't do that again.
Yeah.
Okay, honey. Well, it
Yeah.
sounds like, it was unpleasant, but also, the upside is a learning experience. So
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much.
you are so welcome, and thank you everybody for sharing. You guys will be able to access this recording wherever you get your podcast or also on YouTube. And if you're listening to this, come and join us on Meetup, Chloe with Love and Relationships. I look forward to your questions, your updates. If I don't hear from you before next week, I will see you then. Good night.
Mm.